What's going on, Intense fans? John Hall here. We're in the race shop. Congratulations on purchasing your brand new Intense Primer 2.9 Pro. Today, I'm going to walk you through how to build it. Let's open this thing up and get it out so we can get to going. First thing we want to do is remove our wheel spacers that will hold our toolkit. We'll use that to build the bike. Pull out the front one. You're going to find an accessory kit. That'll have your SRAM wireless battery charger and battery in there. Keep that accessory kit. And now we want to pull our wheels out. Set these aside and we'll do these later. First step we want to do before we pull the bike out of the box is we want to remove the packaging from the handlebars. Set it up here right on top like that and roll it over and pull this cardboard off. So to pull it out, what we want to do is locate our dropper post lever on the left-hand side of the handlebars. Give that a push. It's going to raise our seat up and help us pull the bike out of the box easier. Once we've got our bike to this position and our seat post up, pull that bad boy out. Taking care not to stretch your cables or hurt those. Once we've got our bike out of the box and our seat post up, we want to install it into our bike stand, ensuring that we clamp only on our seat post. Next step, let's get all this packaging off. All right, now that we've got our bike in the stand and all the packaging off, our next step we want to do is install our handlebars. Ensuring that our fork is facing forward, you're going to notice that your stem is about 180 degrees to the rear. We're just going to want to spin that around to the front so it makes it a little bit easier and it's facing the right direction. Using the supplied 3-way from your Intense toolkit and the 4mm, remove all 4 bolts from your stem faceplate. Now that we've got the faceplate off of our stem, we're ready to install our bars. Ensuring that your cables are correctly oriented, go ahead and just set your bars in there and reinstall the faceplate and put each bolt in by hand at first. Using the handlebar logo, center it in the middle of the faceplate, both left to right and up and down. And that's a good starting point for your bar position. Slowly tighten the stem faceplate bolts in the following pattern: top left, bottom right, bottom left, top right, ensuring that you keep an even gap between the faceplate and the stem, both on the top and the bottom. We're just going to tighten these to hand tight so that we can torque them afterwards. With our Intense supplied torque wrench set to 5 Newton meters, we're going to torque in the correct bolt pattern with our 4mm bit. Starting with the top left, working our way around evenly until we achieve proper torque. You'll know you've achieved proper torque when the torque wrench breaks away. There we go. We're going to keep our stem pinch bolts loose until our final setup later on. Moving to the back of the bike, first step we want to do is install our rear wheel. To do that, first remove the axle. Our axle is equipped with a hidden lever that you just pull out, slide over, and spin that thing out. Set that aside. In your accessory kit, you're going to find the SRAM wireless access box here. Red, hard to miss. Inside of it is going to be our derailleur battery. To install your SRAM battery, first release this clip and remove this dust cover. Then you want to remove the dust cover from your battery. Orientation of your battery is important. This tab goes in first. Drop it in nice and loose and reinstall the clip, making sure you hear the audible pop. Next thing we want to do is remove our brake pad spacer from our rear caliper. Now we're ready to install our rear wheel after we remove the packaging. Now we're going to remove our hub protector, and when we do that, ensure that we don't take our hub spacer with it. If you do, just pop it right back on. As you can see, we have a warning on there. You'll find one on the opposite side as well. Notice how the hub spacer came with it. Simply remove it from the guard and reinstall it. The next step to perform before installing your rear wheel is to move your derailleur cage forward and lock it into that position. Do so by pushing down with pressure, engage that button, and slowly release it until it's caught. To install your rear wheel, set your chain on the smallest cog, slide it up into the dropouts, and guide your brake rotor into your brake caliper, holding pressure at the top. While applying pressure at the top of your wheel to hold it in, take your axle in your free hand and reinstall it. Snug it up hand tight and reinstall the hidden lever. Now we're going to torque our rear axle to 11 Newton meters with our intense supplied torque wrench. I use the extended 5mm that comes in your toolkit so that it can reach the axle. Slide it in there, find your bolt, and you're actually going to want to go to the left since we're on the opposite side. If you notice the two machine lines are lined up perfectly, that's set correctly. If you notice that they're not lined up with each other, simply loosen your axle, adjust your derailleur to where they're lined up, and re-torque it. Now we can release our derailleur. By pushing forward, the button will release and slowly let it come back into place. Coming back to the front of the bike, it's time to install our front wheel, first by removing the packaging. Just like the rear wheel, we have guards here that we need to remove, ensuring that our hub spacer does not come with it. We have one on the opposite side as well. Didn't come with it, still in there. We're going to first start by removing our front axle by releasing this pinch bolt with our 6mm on our 3-way that's provided in your toolkit. Then we're going to flip down our lever and spin our front axle out. Set that aside. Next step, remove the pad spacer from your front caliper. With our wheel in our right hand and our axle in our left hand, we're going to install the front wheel, guiding the rotor into the front caliper and the hub into the dropouts, and reinstall your front axle. We're going to tighten it to where when you flip this lever up, you begin to feel tension about halfway, ensuring that this lever is always pointed in the up direction. We're going to finish off installing our front wheel by retightening the pinch bolt with our 6mm on our 3-way that's provided in your toolkit. We're going to want to just hand tighten that and snug it up. At this point, it's a good time to install your pedals of preference. After you've got your pedals on, the next step is to double check our shifting. The SRAM Axis GX Wireless T-Type comes paired out of the box. If it's not, for whatever reason, please refer to your manual for that process. I like to check my shifting by shifting one gear at a time, ensuring that it's nice and smooth from gear to gear. Checking through the full range of your cassette all the way to the top and back down. I like to end in the middle of the cassette in an easier gear. At this point, we're ready to drop the bike on the ground and adjust our cockpit, meaning our handlebars and our stem, and make sure everything's tight and straight and getting ready to ride. For this process of setting up our handlebars, I like to lower my seat and stand over the bike. Ensuring that our stem pinch bolts are loose, our first step is to make sure our headset's tight. In order to do that, grab your front brake and rock it back and forth. If you don't feel any play and there's no binding, then you're all good. If you do feel a little bit of play, feel free to tighten it up, no more than 2 to 4 Newton meters, ensuring that there's no resistance and there's no play. After we've adjusted our headset, we want to straighten our bars and tighten our pinch bolts on our stem. In order to do that, I like to put my foot at the front of the wheel to avoid it from turning and line my bars up perfectly straight. I have 2 methods to ensure that my bars are perfectly straight. My favorite one is using the horizon of the bars and lining it up with the horizon of the front fork crown. The second option is to eyeball it and make sure that your stem is perfectly aligned with your front tire. Now that we've made sure our bars are perfectly aligned, we're going to torque our stem pinch bolts to 5 Newton meters, alternating between the two. After we've adjusted our headset and straightened our bars, I like to make sure that I get my personal bar roll exactly where I want it. In order to do that, I loosen the top two bolts on the stem faceplate, roll my bars where I want them, and retorque them to 5 Newton meters. After I've got my bar roll right, I like to make sure I have my brake levers where I want them. To do that, use your T25 bit and loosen your brake levers just slightly so they have just enough play in them where you can move them. Adjust them evenly to where you want them, making sure they're lined up. Give your brakes a couple pulls, make sure they're where you want them, and retorque your T25 bolts on each one to 4 Newton meters. Ensuring that our seat post is in the fully extended position, the next step I like to do is adjust my saddle height. In order to do that, and just get a good starting point, I like to stand next to the bike with my hand flat on the seat, ensuring that it's roughly in the middle of my hip. If we need to adjust it, we're going to loosen the seat post clamp, move it up and down as needed. Always ensure your seat is aligned with your top tube when you're done with that. Snug this bolt up with your 3-way and use your torque wrench to tighten it to 4 Newton meters. The reason we torque that to 4 Newton meters is to ensure not to over tighten your clamp and affect the function of your seat post. Give it a double check and we're all good. After assembly, it's important to ensure that you have enough slack with your cable underneath your bottom bracket to ensure no binding when the bike goes through its full suspension compression. If there's not enough, you can pull it down. If there's too much, you can push it back in. We want roughly 38 millimeters. Before we move on to our final step of setting up our suspension, we're going to make sure we have proper pressure in our tires. Your Intense Primer Pro comes equipped with Fox factory air suspension, both on the front and the rear. We're going to adjust that and set it up according to your body weight using our supplied shock pump in our toolkit by referencing the manual and finding the suspension setup chart. In there, you will find your body weight with your related pressure needed for both your fork and your shock. Once you've found those proper pressures, we're going to use our Intense supplied shock pump to put that pressure in both your fork and your shock. I'm going to show you how to do that now. We're going to start with the fork first. On the left-hand side, we're going to remove the air cap. Next, we're going to install our shock pump. Now we're going to use the shock pump to install air to the pressure that you found using the manual. One important key feature about your Fox factory fork is that it has a dual air chamber. As you install air, it is only filling one, and we need to transfer the air and equalize that pressure between the two chambers. In order to equalize the pressure in your air chamber, leave your shock pump on once you've set your desired pressure and cycle your fork a few times. You may encounter heavier resistance than other times, and sometimes you can hear the air transfer, but do this a few times and then you're going to notice that your pressure drops slightly. Repump this up to your desired pressure and repeat that process until the pressure no longer drops. If you've realized you've put too much pressure in, this red release button will allow air to escape. Once your fork is set to your desired pressure and it's been equalized, remove your shock pump and reinstall the air cap. Please reference the Intense manual under suspension settings in order to find a good base for both your high-speed and low-speed compression as well as your high-speed and low-speed rebound. To finish off our suspension setup, we're going to adjust the air pressure in our rear shock. A good starting point, and only a starting point, is your body weight in PSI. So let's start there. First, start by removing the air cap and installing your shock pump. Once you've reached your body weight in PSI, we're going to do the same as the fork and make sure that we transfer air between the two chambers. Leave your shock pump on, lean on your seat, and compress your shock slowly, and if you listen carefully, you can actually hear it transfer. Repeat that process until your pressure no longer drops and you're still at your desired PSI. Once you have your pressure set, jump on your bike, compress the suspension a few times, hold it statically, move your O-ring up to where your shock is, and gently get off. You want these O-rings, both on your fork and your shock, roughly 30% sag on your shock and 20% on your fork. If you have more than that, increase the pressure until you reach the desired sag, or decrease the pressure until you reach your desired sag. For the compression settings on your rear shock, please reference the manual that Intense provides in the suspension section to get a rough start and a good starting point for those. Your shock also features a climb switch. When it's in the down position, your shock is wide open. When it's in the up position, it firms up the compression on the shock and allows you to climb more efficiently. All right, everybody, that concludes the building of your brand new Intense Primer 2.9 Pro with factory suspension from Fox. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our customer service. They're more than happy to help you out. And as always, thanks for riding Intense, and congratulations on your new bike.